Jon, we're here in New York at Service Department Summit Americas. When people discuss service departments, branded residences, extended stay and so on, there's a lot of focus on the upper scale and luxury end of the market, but not so much on the sector that you guys at InTown Suites focus on. Can you tell us a bit about what you do and how you see your level of the market evolving in the next few years?
Sure. I mean, the economy space is overlooked. It's less sexy. It's less exciting physically. It's lower price point. It's at times a slightly more difficult guest base to sort of manage. And I think it gets overlooked a little bit. Some of the virtues that I think will surprise people from our perspective and what I'm aware of from the other upper tier sectors, we're actually a more profitable business because our overhead structure is so much leaner. Also, I think because it's overlooked, the supply change that's expected over the next 2 to 3 years in middle and upper is high single digits in terms of, again, new supply, new development coming online this year and next year. For us, the growth is expected to be about 2 to 3% in the sector, and frankly, most of that is us and one other company. Value Place together, we have about a 50% market share. So if you take just 2 companies out of it, it's pretty much zero. And then lastly, while it's a mere 2%, there are many markets where it's zero. So if you're selective about the markets you choose to grow and develop in the lower tier, the economy tier, you can find markets that have been static for years, and yet they're high job and population growth markets. So for a lot of reasons, it's very exciting, very good reasons if you like to make money and to grow. But it gets overlooked because it's less sort of exciting. It's not, people tend to be excited to go to a luxury or a nice hotel like the one we're standing in right now. They're less excited just, viscerally by a lower end product, but it doesn't mean the lower end product doesn't perform equal to or better and doesn't provide more opportunity, which it does.
You mentioned earlier that the margins are particularly high in this sector, but you also said you're embarking on a major renovation program across your properties, which is costing you a lot of money.
It is.
And you're kind of subtly bringing the level of the brand upwards. Do you think you can maintain the margins while providing a slightly higher level?
I mean, that's my obligation ultimately to my investors. They're making about $1 million per property bet times 189. So that's a big bet. We maybe stepped into it. We started by doing just 4 renovations. We got those done in the middle of last year. I've been here about 1.5 years now. So we developed a scope, a fairly disciplined scope. We sort of asked ourselves, with that scope, knowing what we know locally, can we achieve about $30 of increased rate on a sustained basis? We did the 4. We had the result we expected, and then we started putting the throttle down. We built the team to be able to execute between 20 to 30 at a time. And now, about a year, not quite later, we're into number 60. And knock on wood, so far we are sustaining that. And so I think we have enough road behind us that's been successful that I think we're going to be able to sustain it. Now, I'll give you an example where we haven't sustained the $30, but I'll explain why, and it still makes sense. In Houston, which is an oil and gas market, oil barrel pricing being so low, the economy hurting so much, we're down low single digits there, 4% in revenue in general. One of our renos there is only up about $5 year over year, but if you adjust for that change, we're still right in the sweet spot of what we expect. And you have to have some intellectual honesty when we look at these things and say, wait a second, it doesn't have to be $30 literally, it's not a static world, but relative to sort of adjusted for other factors, are we able to sustain that 30? And so far we've been able to.
As well as the renovation program, do you have plans for a rollout and adding more properties? And if so, how do you target a market? What do you look for to
Great questions. Another priority when I got here was to prove out that we could grow. We've grown by acquisition. We acquired 50 locations last year, 6,300 keys last year. But in addition to your question, we developed a prototype, a design, a scope, a budget. We determined how much money we could pay for land and land development, et cetera. We now have 8 locations under contract, 2 that are going vertical right now. The way we slice and dice this large country, we're focused domestically for now. There are lots of hundreds of MSAs. We look primarily at 2 factors. We looked initially at a lot more factors, but we whittled it down to markets that between now and 2019 are projected to have the highest job and then the highest population growth both. And where those intersected, those are our top markets. To a real estate person or a hospitality person, there are no surprises which those are. In no particular order, they're Austin, they're Denver, they're Charlotte, North Carolina, they're Nashville, South Florida. Those are the markets that we're now active in. We are starting to get there where at any given time we're looking at 20 sites. We are starting to venture out now a little bit, but those are our focal markets. That's how we think macro macroscopically on site selection. Microscopically, microsite selection, we have a set of very rigid criteria we use, from demographic data, trips, how many cars are going by. One thing that's unique to our brand that others don't look at, I don't think, and it's more of an apartment, it's a testament to we are kind of apartment-like, not just hotel. We actually look at pedestrian walkability scores. There's a company we use that rates the walkability factor, typically used by apartments, not used by hotel. We use that because access to retail, immediate access to retail. In other words, some white-collar workers, some construction workers, some traveling nurse, some family, they get home late, they need to quickly go get a bite. We keep our overhead structure low so we don't have F&B service. So they can walk to a restaurant, to a food store within a 3 or 4 minute walk. And that's a big factor for us too in determining the exact site.
Great, and finally, Jon, what are your impressions of this first Service Department Summit Americas?
It's probably been 8 years since I've gone to any kind of industry event. I really tend not to, for lots of reasons. So this is the first one. I'm here because I think it's great that this sector, which is really not understood in this country, people don't understand extended stay. They really don't get, or apart hotel in Europe. People don't understand it. They just kind of autopilot think it's hotel, and it is not hotel. Particularly when you get to, like us, with these 89 average day lengths of stays, we are very much like an apartment on the one hand, but very much like a hotel on the other. It's a blend, and so I'm really happy that somebody is sort of taken the energy to create an association like this. A big part of it for me is I really am committed to educating the investor world on who we are and what we are, because I think the multiples, the exit multiples, a true extended stay product like us, very long term, should trade at are not hotel multiples. And I think we're looked at that way, and I think it's wrong because we have cash flow stability and sort of committed long-term stays, maybe not under a lease agreement, but like an apartment. And to me, that justifies exit multiples moving more toward apartment, not fully apartment, but more toward it. And if you just move a little bit, the value increase is significant. And my commitment to my investors is maximize value. And so I'm selfishly here for that, but I'm happy more than just me. I can be a part of finally somebody in this country, at least spending time in this country, is going to help me and others educate the world on that point. So I think it's been fantastic so far. And thank you.